Hey there, everyone. Hope you are enjoying this month of June. We are on June 25th, and we're looking at our news article now, A Solution to Solitude in Korean Society. For English Digest, I'm Leah.
And I'm Mike.
And we're going to take a look at this story. So, a solution to solitude. I don't know about you, Mike, but for me personally, I kind of like my solitude. I'm one of those kinds of people who likes to spend some time alone. If you're somebody who likes a solitary life, then you like to be by yourself. So if you're in solitude, you are by yourself.
Absolutely. Solitude by choice can be a good thing and a healthy thing. You're right. Some people do need to recharge their social batteries. They can't just kind of hang out and be with people and chat and make small talk all the time. They find it exhausting. But I guess enforced solitude that's not given to you as a choice. I just like to be on my own, but I'm lonely. I wish I could be with other people, but I can't find anyone to be with. That can be actually very sad and depressing and can, lead to all sorts of bad things, not only mental health issues, but also physical health issues.
True.
And of course, if you're wanting to start a family, it's a little hard.
There's no more solitude
it's
for
harder.
you.
It's harder to do it that way. Nature has sort of determined that, you got to have a friend to make a baby. Or a life partner or a husband or a wife or however you want to term them. And it's true that in the world today, everyone busy all the time, living in our little apartments in cities and spending too much time maybe on social media and not just being social in real life. People who are forced to be on their own, who can't find someone to marry, to partner with, to make a family with. This is becoming an increasing problem.
And we're going to talk about it today, but first, let's take a listen to the article one time.
South Korea finds itself at a crossroads. The country is struggling with a demographic issue characterized by a rising number of unmarried individuals and an aging population. The situation has been highlighted by the actions of Yoon Seo-ran, a 43-year-old South Korean woman who recently drew societal attention by adopting her 38-year-old single friend, Lee Yo-ri, forging an unconventional family unit. While this phenomenon is not at all common in South Korea, the winds of change may be starting to blow. In Korean society, strict gender roles and a patriarchal culture have long been prevalent. After marriage, women are often expected to assume the role of primary caregivers, responsible for childbirth, child care, and household duties. However, this paradigm has been challenged by the rise of feminist consciousness, prompting many women to question and reject these societal norms. These women are liberating themselves from societal pressures and creating support networks that pave the way for new possibilities in Korean family structures. However, current South Korean law specifies that only relationships based on blood ties, marriage between a man and a woman, and formal adoption are considered family. Initiatives aimed at legislative reform to broaden the scope of family composition have invariably encountered opposition from conservative groups, who were concerned that such changes could potentially grant homosexual couples rights and promote same-sex marriage. The conflict reflects the struggle between tradition and modernity in Korean society. The motivation driving the formation of families without blood or marriage ties is to form a mutual support system for those living in solitude to ensure they never have to confront loneliness in their later years. Yoon Seo-ran and Lee Yo-ri believe everyone should have the autonomy to determine their lifestyle. They hope future legislation will more effectively align with societal evolutions, thereby better meeting the diverse needs of the changing population.
Okay, getting into the nuts and bolts that are laying here in front of us, South Korea finds itself at a crossroads. When you're at a crossroads, you have to make a decision. Am I going to go left? Am I going to go right? It's where two roads cross one direction and the other direction, right? They're running perpendicular to one another, and you have to make a decision. Which way are you going to go? And we can be at crossroads in our lives where we just don't know what we're going to do. And South Korea finds itself at a crossroads. The country is struggling with a demographic issue characterized by a rising number of unmarried individuals and an aging population. So a lot of times when we talk about demographics, We're talking about, something about the human population and what it does. Like 18 to 45-year-olds like to watch TV on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. And that would be 35% of the population. This is the demographic that a lot of businesses might focus on marketing their products to by creating commercials for that group of people. Here, they're struggling with the demographic in their human population where they don't have an increasing number of people out there. So their demographic issue is characterized by a rising number of unmarried individuals, but an aging population. It means there's some folks out there that are going to be passing away soon, probably. And there's a lot of people that aren't getting married, so they're not going to have little ones that are going to increase the population.
Yeah, a lot of the problems that Korea is facing with demographics in its society are mirrored in Japan, in Taiwan, more and more in China, and in fact in many Western countries, I think also in North America too. As it says, there's a rising number of unmarried individuals. You have more and more young people getting into their 30s and 40s when, normally they would be having children, and they're not married, they're not starting families, they're just living on their own through their own choices or through economic reasons often. And at the same time, you have a lot of older people, this sort of baby boom post-war generation. Our parents or grandparents, in other words, they're getting older. And as they get older, they need people to pay for them and take care of them and, have taxes that they can use for their old age pensions and stuff. And with young people not having kids and fewer young people, this is creating a real problem, right? We have these graying societies. I think Taiwan is definitely facing this issue. Young people here don't settle down. They can't afford to. They don't want to. They can't afford a house. They're worried about childcare. So they're not having kids. So who is going to pay for and take care of the generations that are too old to work? Good question.
That is a good question. And we're going to move into the next sentence where it says, the situation has been highlighted by the actions of Yoon Seo-ran, a 43-year-old South Korean woman who recently drew societal attention by adopting her 38-year-old single friend, Lee Yo-ri, forging an unconventional family unit. I love this. This is fascinating, right? This situation has been highlighted. The situation of the rising number of the unmarried individuals and the aging population has been highlighted. There's a focus on this particular topic because this woman decided to do something strange, and it was strange enough that it drew societal attention. The society around her, the people around her are going, well, what are you doing? This is a little bit odd, right?
It definitely drew media attention and then societal attention, I would say first.
And what she did was she adopted that 38-year-old friend of hers, her single friend. So that person is now her kid. And she forged something. She created or formed something. A lot of times when I think of forging something, I think of taking a couple of pieces of metal and getting a really, really big hot oven worth of fire and melting them together or trying to solder them together and make something cool out of it, like your niece does, I believe. You've mentioned before. She forges things. But here, this forging is talking about forming or creating. And what they're forming or creating is an unconventional family unit. So a unique, something that is not the norm. If it's conventional, it's the norm. It's what you see every day. Something that's unconventional is unique or odd for what you would see in day-to-day life.
There you go. We have two ladies who are friends. There's a 5-year difference, but the older one is now basically like the mother to the younger one. And there's no blood ties here. There's no, old family relationship. They're just two friends who decided to make a family or forge an unconventional family unit. As Leah explained, forging is often used for working with metal, creating things in a blacksmith shop, that kind of idea. But we also use it often to talk about making relationships. You can forge a friendship, forge a relationship, forge a partnership between two companies. These kinds of things that might take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, but you can create something newer and stronger in the same way that if you forge metal together, you can make something newer and stronger by using fire and patience and hard work. While this phenomenon, this sort of experience or this sort of happening is not at all common in South Korea. We should point that out. This is a very strange story, but it's a very strange story. It's strange in Korea as well,
yes.
Not just for us from the outside. So this is not at all common. This is unusual in Korea and, of course, in most other parts of the world. But the winds of change may be starting to blow. That's the funny thing about these strange stories, is that they were strange now, but in 5 or 10 years, it becomes common. We wouldn't say it's not at all common. We say it's common. But when we say it's not at all common, we say it isn't very common. All right? This is not at all something I see very often. All right? This is something I don't see very often. It says in Korean society, strict gender roles and a patriarchal culture have long been prevalent. Okay, I think that's stronger in Korea and Japan too. But we do see a little bit of this in Taiwan. But I have to admit, Taiwan is much more liberal and modern and open-minded than Korean society. There are strict gender roles. Men do this, women do that. Men are engineers and lawyers and doctors and pilots, and women are nurses and mothers and school teachers and maybe work in a shop or something like that. You know, this kind of idea, right? Men go out and work, women stay home and take care of the kids. That kind of idea would be a strict
patriarchal.
Gender roles. And patriarchal meaning basically the father, the older male dominates relationships. If you want to get anything done in your family, you gotta ask dad. And even if mom says, well, I don't mind, but you have to ask your father. If your father says no, you know mom will not have any chance of changing his mind probably because it's patriarchal. So they're led by the father, by the older male, and these types of relationships have long been prevalent, have long been common, have long been normal, have long been just the way things are done in Korea. And of course, changing gender roles, social roles, things like that can be a very long and difficult and frustrating process.
Right, and after marriage, women are often expected to assume the role of primary caregivers, as we were just talking about, right? So they're the ones that would stay at home. It's a patriarchal society, not a matriarchal society where the women are the matriarch, right? Are the top of the power chain. So then they are instead the ones who are the primary caregivers, taking care of the family. They are responsible for childbirth, child care, and household duties.
Mom.
Mom's doing all the work.
Mom.
The lady who's out there at the sports park with all the bags and lots of additional doodads hanging off of her, that's the mom.
Yeah, she might have been a successful lawyer till she got married.
Then she's a mom.
All that ended and she became a mom.
It's a very honorable title to have as well. However, this paradigm has been challenged by the rise of feminist consciousness, prompting many women to question and reject these societal norms. So a paradigm is a very clear or typical example. So this example, it's been challenged by the rise of feminist consciousness. Okay, so feminists are people who believe that women should have equal power and sometimes maybe dominating power in society. But it's just a group that believes that women should really have their equal role in society, should have their own voice, should have their should be made. The public should be made aware of their importance, the feminine importance, and that would be someone who is a feminist, someone who believes that women should be at least equals in society. So we've got the rise of feminist consciousness. So this, I guess, is an example with this South Korean woman who's like, you know what, I'm not going to get married. I'm going to adopt somebody who's my friend, and we're going to do this differently. And I can do this because I'm a woman, hear me roar. Prompting many women to question and reject these societal norms. So the societal norms are here in this situation with South Korea is the patriarchal society with the very strict gender roles. And the women are like, yeah, nah, we're not going to do that. We are going to fight this.
Interesting. I remember reading articles about the same thing happening here in Taiwan, 10 or 20 years ago, right around when Sex and the City started on HBO. I remember
it's been a while, 20 probably years.
That was
plus.
a time when there's a lot of talk of this in Taiwan. And I think, for example, women going through this sort of battle here in Taiwan would probably face less resistance today than their Korean counterparts would be. They're still fighting these battles. These women, it says in Korea, are liberating themselves from societal pressures and creating support networks that pave the way for new possibilities in Korean family structures. Again, I think things that have happened here in Taiwan. But in Korea, they are liberating or freeing themselves. When you liberate yourselves from something, you free yourself from it. I guess if you break out of jail, you could say, I'm not breaking out of jail, I'm liberating myself from prison. And the police will say, yeah, but you're still going back to jail. just calling yourself liberating. But if you were a slave, then that would be a big thing. That would definitely be liberating yourself. If you break your chains and change the laws so that slavery or something is not allowed, you are liberating all those people. Of course, Abraham Lincoln famously liberated all the slaves in America during the middle of the Civil War, freed them using, his power, using the law. These women are doing it more in a social way. They're just getting people used to the idea that, I'm a 35-year-old woman, I don't want to get married, and I don't want to have kids, and that's okay. So they're freeing themselves from these pressures. I'm sure their parents are like, but who are you? Who's going to take care of you? And you need to find a nice man to settle down with.
And who's going to take care of me?
Nah, I don't care. I have friends. I don't need to, be married or have kids. And in order to help themselves do that, they're kind of creating these alternate families, creating these support networks of friends, like-minded women and men, I'm sure too, young modern men. And that can kind of help them survive some of the stress of dealing with their family or, having people expect things of them and being strong enough to say, you might expect that for me, or that might have been the way you did it when you were young, but I'm different. I want to do it a different way. And having these support networks, these emotional support networks and other types of support that help them to, make their own decisions. And this paves the way. This creates new possibilities, opens up new options in Korean family structures. So the young girls of today, when they're older in 20 years, they might find it much easier to live their lives and make the decisions they want because of the battles they're being fought by their older sisters right now.
Let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要来谈一下韩国的某一个现象。韩国有一个女生她叫做殷瑞兰。那她收养了38岁的单身朋友李佑利，然后接着呢，全韩国甚至其他的国家都引起了一些关注，因为什么她会收养自己的好友呢？原来是因为她不想要孤独而死。什么意思我们听起来好像会怪怪的，对不对？我们来看一下文章的第一段。其实文章第一段的第一句就告诉我们，南韩其实现在正在处于一个很关键的时刻，一个 crossroads， 就是所谓的十字路口啦，很关键的时刻。因为韩国现在正在对应的是这种人口结构，也就是未婚人口增加、人口老化的这种人口结构问题。在第一段的第二句，这边特别要注意一下，有一个限定用法的关系子句简化先行词是 a demographic issue， 就是所谓的人口结构的问题。后面的 characterized 一直到句尾的地方，我们可以左右括号，省略的是冠带 which 或者是 that 跟 be 动词的 is。像句子的简化，我们就会说冠带就是个连接词的概念，它被简化之后，后面的动词就会变成 ing 型。那在这里，由于因为受到 by 这个关键字以及整体文意的了解，我们知道它是个被动式嘛。那 be 动词的 being 同样在句子简化里也会直接省略因为 be 动词其实本身没有什么意义，它是一个功能性的动词，所以我们对于简化稍微又再解释一下。我们刚刚讲说，就是因为43岁的一个韩国女性殷瑞兰，她就是收养38岁的她的单身的朋友。可是这种现象在韩国其实并不是很常见啦，因为他们就是形成了一个所谓的非传统的家庭单位。虽然在韩国并不常见，但是风向可能会开始转变我们甚至其实殷瑞兰她自己也出了一本书，就是她收养好友的这一件事情，她出了一本书。为什么会这样子呢？到底是什么样的转变？我们接下来要进到第二段的这个地方。第二段在第一句就告诉我们，因为其实在韩国社会当中，长期以来，如果你有在追韩剧，大概也可以看得到，长期以来就是有很严格的性别角色跟父权文化。像这些关键字其实都可以把它学起来，不管以后我们在书写文章啦，或者是写翻译的时候，这些关键字都要用对，用字要精准。例如在第二段第一句当中，所谓的性别角色，性别你不要用 sex 那件事嘛，我们就不要用那个字，我们就是用性别 gender roles， 还有所谓的父权文化。你会觉得父权文化很专业吗？其实也还好像我们这个很多的亚洲国家在父权文化上面 也是很重，所以父权文化同样也是第二段的第一句，在中间后面的地方 patriarchal culture 这个字也可以把它学起来。当然就是这个 prevalent 就是非常的这个长期以来就是很盛行了，很普及，就是大概这个状况。所以基本上就是女生好结婚就是要生小孩，照顾小孩，处理家务这些东西。可是我们也知道女权主义抬头也都好多年了，所以这样子的一个状况通常呢在很多的国家当中就会这个受到挑战，很多的女生就会质疑拒绝这样的社会规范。我们特别注意第二段的第三句第二段的第三句在逗点之后prompting 这个地方，那这个 prompting 呢它也是一个关系子句的简化。 prompting 本来还原的话应该是 which prompts。 好，这个汇群呢代替的就是前面的所谓的女性主义的这样的意识 feminist consciousness， 女性已经意识到自己其实有一个这个平等的人权之后 which 这样子的意识就促使了 prompts 很多的女生会 question 质疑 reject 甚至就是反对这些社会的规范。那个规范用的是 norm N-O-R-M norm 这个字。那当然女性解放自己，然后支持一些这个就是建立了一些支持的网络。在韩国为了他们因为这样子的一个情况就变成整个国家的家庭结构可能会有一些很大的转变。在第二段的第四句我们看到有一个限定用法关系子句先行词是 support networks， support networks 就是支持性的网络，后面的 that 一直到句尾是限定用法， that 是冠带来修饰这个所谓的 support networks。
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Moving along, we get into this next paragraph. It says, however, so we have a pivot, we have a change from what we've been talking about before. However, current South Korean law specifies that only relationships based on blood ties, marriage between a man and a woman, and formal adoption are considered family. So we've talked about all this kind of change going on in South Korea, but current South Korean law specifies, it specifically talks about the fact that only relationships that are based on blood ties, which means you share the same bloodline, daughter to mother to daughter or father to daughter, that sort of thing, or a marriage between a man and a woman. So there's a specification of this, right? A clear specification that it has to be a man and a woman. And the third category being formal adoption. So if you formally adopt somebody and make them your child, those are the only ways that your particular bond with someone can be considered a family bond.
Wow, okay. And it says and, so you might need several of those things together. Very interesting. Initiatives aimed at legislative reform to broaden the scope of family composition have invariably encountered opposition from conservative groups who were concerned that such changes could potentially grant homosexual couples rights and promote same-sex marriage. So a lot of people want to redefine what a family can be, that it's not just a man and a woman who have kids or who adopt kids. No, it can be two men, it can be two women, it can be a woman adopting her friend, and that can be a family and have all the legal protections that being a family give you under the law. So initiatives or attempts or plans or efforts aimed at legislative reform, legislative relating to the legislature, the government, the body of the government that usually is elected in Korea and Taiwan and passes laws, right? So we talk about the Lifa Yuan, that's the legislative yuan, that's where the laws are passed. When you make a new law, you have to get the legislature to vote on it, and if enough people do, enough politicians do, then it becomes a law. So they're trying to reform the law in the country to broaden or widen the scope of family composition, not have it be so narrow. It's got to be between a man and a woman, and they have to have a baby either through natural means or through adopting. They want to broaden that out, open that up, widen that out. What is a family? A family can be two men. It can be two women. It can be two people. They're not even married. They just lived together for 2 years. They are now a family. They have all the same legal protections as a family that gets married in a church and does it the old traditional way. So they want to widen the idea of the family under the law and have invariably, have all the time at every point, invariably meaning in an unchanging kind of fashion, encountered opposition. If your friend is always late, if you can set your watch because you know, oh, they're supposed to be here at 10, I know it's now 10:15 because they showed up. They're invariably 15 minutes late. They are always 15 minutes late. So they have always encountered opposition, these more modern groups who want to change the law. Who are they encountering opposition from? Conservative groups. This, again, kind of mirrors the Taiwan battle for gay marriage. It was conservative groups, often Christian-based, but not always. And they were worried, they were concerned that changes like this, changing the idea of what a family is, could potentially grant homosexual couples rights and promote same-sex marriage. I guess these groups, since they're conservative, they might be against gay marriage or homosexual couples having rights. If you're homosexual, you are attracted to members of the same sex. You're a man who loves other men, wants to hug and kiss and, do physical things with in that kind of way. If you're a man who likes women or a woman who likes men, you are heterosexual, Hetero sexual. Homosexual would be men attracted to men or women attracted to women. In Taiwan, homosexual people can get married. I don't know, can they adopt kids yet? I think that's on its way.
I think that might be on its way,
if it's not here yet. But in Korea, they don't have many of those or any of those legal protections, apparently. And conservative groups are afraid of what will happen if they do. They don't want them to be allowed to marry like heterosexual couples, and they don't want to promote this idea. Why? You'd have to ask them.
And this conflict reflects the struggle between tradition and modernity in Korean society. So you've got the traditional society that says this is the way things need to be, with the sex roles, the gender roles being a specific way, and modernity where people are saying, no, we're going to break those rules a little bit. We want to broaden them. I'm going to adopt my friend, and we're going to push the boundaries of what's allowed. The motivation driving the formation of families without blood or marriage ties is to form a mutual support system for those living in solitude to ensure they never have to confront loneliness in their later years. And this all really makes sense. We've talked about it earlier in the story. You want that mutual support system. I help you, you help me. We're here in this together. And that way you don't have to live alone. It makes sure you don't have to live alone. You don't have to confront loneliness. You don't have to face loneliness. You don't have to be alone in your later years. So Yun So-ran and Lee Yo-ri, they believe that everyone should have the autonomy to determine their lifestyle. They should have the freedom to determine how they want to live. And they hope that future legislation, future laws, will more effectively align with societal evolutions, thereby better meeting the diverse needs of the changing population. So they're hoping that laws in the future will line up with the way, the modern view of South Korea is going. So moving toward a broader view on this family composition setup instead. To align means to get in line with or to bring into line. So these two are hoping that in the future, different kinds of family units are appreciated and respected. And for us right now, this is the end of our article. We are going to listen to our Chinese teacher once again.
好，看到这边你可能会觉得很奇怪，就是好嘛，那大家都知道女权主义就抬头嘛，那韩国也是一样，就开始很多的女性啊，就是有这些女性的这个要反抗性别角色啦，或者是父权文化，那她干嘛要收养她的好友呢？是因为这样的，在第3段 however 之后又出现重点了，真正的重点在这里啊，因为目前 current 南韩它的法律specify 就是很明确，就是规定只有血缘的关系，男女之间的婚姻，正式的收养关系才会被视为家庭。好，在第3段的这个第1句的地方，我们来看一下血缘关系，当然跟血有关，的确真的用 blood 这个字，那个关系我们就不用 relation 了，我们就用 blood tie T-I-E， 本来有绑起来的意思，在这里指的就是所谓的血缘之间的关系，或者是 marriage， 或者是结婚的关系。往后看 and formal adoption， 正式的收养。那这个所谓的正式，就是说经过法律的程序。那被视为家庭又怎么样呢？又为什么要收养这个自己的这个好朋友呢？原来啊，是因为殷瑞兰其实未婚。那这个呢，接下来在他年纪大了之后，不管是因为医疗啊，或者是其他的重要的一些事件上面啊，只有家人才能够执行一些这个特定的行为，所以他才必须要去收养他的好友，让他的好友变成他的家人，才能够帮他在法律上执行一些动作，所以才会有所谓的收养朋友。好，那接下来的第3段，我们来看一下第2句这个地方哦。在第2句这边呢，就有提到有一些立法的改革。那很多人就觉得说这个情况应该要改变啊，不然这个收养这个朋友这样好像也怪怪，对不对？但是不管怎么样，保守团体啊，他们都一致反对。他们有什么 concern 呢？他们就担心，如果这样改变的话，那这样子同性恋就会有伴侣权啊，甚至会促进同性的婚姻。不过我们刚刚讲的这么顺哦，在这边呢，英文写的是感觉有点复杂诶。我们先看一下第3段第2句这个地方，其实句子的第一个字后面就带了简化的关系子句。那句子第一个字的 initiatives 指的是倡议的意思。那这个倡议后面的 aimed 一直到后面的 composition 可以左右括号起来。那它简化的就是which 或者是 that 跟 be 动词。什么样的倡议呢？就是在扩大家庭组成范围的这种立法改革的倡议当中，怎样 have encountered 就遭遇到了 opposition 反对。反对什么呢？后面的反对 from 再加上我们刚刚所谓的这个保守团体 conservative groups。那逗点之后带的互道句尾就是补充说明刚刚我们说保守派团体到底反对什么东西。好，所以接下来啊，我们就提到啦，当然如果要形成无亲属的这个家庭啊，最主要的动机其实就是为了独居的人可以有一个相互支持的系统，然后在晚年就不用面对孤独啦。所以其实像是这个收养好友，甚至是因为其实大家都知道我们台湾也有蛮多不婚啦，甚至是这个一直持续单身的一个情况，到底社会应该要做哪一些改变呢？其实不妨大家可以思考看看。以上是我们今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
What a fascinating topic we've touched on today. I've really enjoyed it. And even though I do like my solitude, I have to admit that I am appreciating the way people are avoiding solitude in this article. How about you, Mike?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a very good idea to allow people to sort of define their own relationships. I mean, if my relationship isn't affecting or hurting or, causing a loss of quality of life to other people, then it's not really their business what I do with who I do it in the comfort and privacy of my own home. And the option would be, to force people to have relationships that make them unhappy because they can't have the relationship they want. And that doesn't seem to be a very enlightened or intelligent way of setting rules for people.
True, true, true. Thank you for joining us today, guys. For English Digest, I'm Leah.
I'm Mike.
See you next time.